The man who chose comfort over discipline and paid the price. There's a quiet moment in life that many people experience, but very few talk about. It usually happens late at night. The room is silent, your phone screen is the only light in the dark, and suddenly a strange thought crosses your mind. I should be further in life than this. Not because you didn't have potential, not because you lacked opportunity, but because somewhere along the way, you kept choosing comfort when discipline was required. And here's the painful part. At first, those choices never look dangerous. Sleeping a little longer doesn't seem like a big deal. Skipping one opportunity feels harmless. Delaying your goals just one more time feels reasonable. But years later, those small moments begin to add up. And that's when the realization hits. You weren't unlucky. You were just comfortable. And comfort has a strange way of quietly stealing the life you could have lived. This is the story of a man named Kelvin, a man who had talent, a man who had dreams, but more importantly, a man who kept choosing comfort over discipline. And eventually, life showed him the true cost of that decision. Welcome to Endless Wisdom Tales. Stories have always shaped humanity. Long before books and screens, wisdom traveled through stories, simple moments carrying powerful truths. On this channel, we explore stories about discipline, ambition, failure, growth, and the quiet decisions that shape who we become. Some of these stories are inspired by real life. Others are reflections of struggles we all face at some point. But each one carries a lesson that might stay with you long after the story ends. And if you're someone trying to build a better life without losing yourself in the process, consider subscribing and giving this video a like if it speaks to you. Now, let's talk about Kelvin. Kelvin was not a lazy man. In fact, if you asked people who knew him growing up, most of them would tell you the same thing. He's smart. He has potential. He's going to do something big one day. And for a long time, Kelvin believed that too. When he was younger, his dreams felt vivid and alive. He talked about building something meaningful, about becoming successful, about creating a life that would make his family proud. But here's the strange thing about life. Dreams don't disappear suddenly. They fade slowly, and most people never notice this while it's happening. At first, Kelvin still believed in his future, but he also discovered something else: comfort. Comfort felt good. It felt safe, and most importantly, it felt easy. When Kelvin finished school, he told himself he would start working on his goals soon. But first, he deserved a break. Just a little time to relax. A few weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And this is the part people rarely talk about. Comfort rarely feels like a problem while you're living inside it. It feels like peace. It feels like rest. It feels like you're simply taking your time. But comfort has a quiet side effect. It slowly weakens your discipline. And without discipline, dreams don't move forward. They simply stay where they started. Kelvin didn't notice it happening. At first, he postponed small things. He told himself he would start tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became next month. And life kept moving. Friends began pursuing careers. Some started businesses. Others took risks that made Kelvin uncomfortable just watching them. Meanwhile, Kelvin stayed where things felt safe. He worked enough to survive. He entertained himself enough to stay distracted. And every once in a while, he reminded himself that he still had time. But most people never realize something important about time. It doesn't announce when it's leaving. It simply goes, quietly, year by year. And this is where everything begins to change. Kelvin was sitting at a small cafe one afternoon. Across from him sat an old friend he hadn't seen in years. They talked about life, about work, about the future. And Kelvin noticed something strange. His friend had changed, not just financially, but mentally. There was a quiet confidence about him, the kind of confidence that only comes from years of discipline and struggle. Kelvin asked him a simple question. "How did you figure things out?" His friend laughed softly. "I didn't figure it out. I just stopped choosing comfort." Kelvin smiled politely, But something about that answer stayed in his mind long after the conversation ended. Because deep down, he knew the truth. Kelvin had not failed because he lacked intelligence. He had not failed because life was unfair. He had failed because comfort had become his default decision. And comfort never builds anything meaningful. It only protects the present while quietly sacrificing the future. Here's the strange thing about human nature. We are wired to avoid discomfort. Our brains naturally prefer easy rewards over long-term effort. Scrolling through your phone feels easier than learning a difficult skill. Watching other people succeed feels easier than building something yourself. Choosing comfort feels natural, but most people never notice the psychological trap hidden inside it. Comfort doesn't destroy your life in dramatic ways. It does it slowly, almost invisibly. You don't wake up one morning and realize everything is gone. Instead, you wake up one day and realize something painful. You had more potential than the life you built. And this is the part people rarely talk about. Discipline isn't just about success. It's about self-respect. Every time you do something difficult that moves your life forward, you quietly prove something to yourself. You prove that your goals matter. You prove that your future deserves effort. But when comfort becomes a habit, something else happens. You slowly begin to doubt yourself, because deep down, you know you're capable of more. Kelvin felt that doubt growing, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, until one day he couldn't ignore it anymore. This is where it gets interesting, because the real lesson in Kelvin's story isn't about failure, it's about awareness. One evening, Kelvin was walking home alone. He passed a group of young students talking excitedly about their future. Their voices were filled with the same energy Kelvin once had. And suddenly, something inside him shifted. He realized something uncomfortable. The life he imagined years ago had not disappeared. He had simply stopped moving towards it. But here's what most people misunderstand. Choosing comfort in the past doesn't mean you must live with regret forever. It simply means the cost of change becomes higher, because rebuilding discipline is harder than maintaining it. But it's still possible. Kelvin stood there for a long moment, and for the first time in years, he asked himself an honest question. What kind of man do I want to become? Not tomorrow, not someday, but starting now. And that question changed everything. Kelvin's story carries a lesson many people learn too late. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about choosing growth even when comfort is easier. So how do you avoid the trap Kelvin fell into? Here are a few lessons his experience reveals. First, pay attention to small decisions. Your life is rarely shaped by huge, dramatic choices. It's shaped by small, daily actions. Waking up early, learning a skill, working when motivation disappears. Small disciplines compound over time. Second, protect your identity. If you see yourself as someone who avoids difficulty, you will naturally choose comfort. But if you begin to see yourself as someone who grows through effort, your behavior slowly changes. Identity shapes action. Third, accept that growth feels uncomfortable. Most people quit too early because they believe discomfort means something is wrong. But discomfort is often proof that you're evolving. Discipline feels heavy in the beginning, but it becomes freedom over time. And fourth, don't wait for motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is what keeps progress moving when motivation disappears. Even small actions taken consistently can change the direction of your life. And perhaps the most important lesson of all, never confuse comfort with happiness. Because comfort protects you from struggle today, but discipline protects you from regret tomorrow. Kelvin's life didn't transform overnight. Raging rarely works that way. But something inside him shifted. He began making different choices. Not dramatic ones, just small ones. The kind of quiet decisions most people overlook. And slowly, his life began moving again. Because the truth is this, the goal was never just success. The real goal was becoming someone he could respect. Someone who didn't run from difficulty. Someone who chose growth even when comfort called his name. And that's a lesson many people discover too late. Comfort is easy, but discipline builds the life you once dreamed about.
And if there's one truth worth remembering, it's this: success should build you, not erase you. If this story spoke to you, consider subscribing to Endless Wisdom Tales. This channel exists for people who believe that growth, discipline, and self-respect still matter in a world that often chooses comfort. And if you know someone who might need this reminder, share this story with them, because sometimes the quiet lessons we hear at the right moment can change the direction of an entire life. And maybe today was that moment for someone.